All right, today we are diving into something really weird and fascinating from the internet. It's called Zooborg Genesis. Now, at first glance, it looks like some kind of sci-fi blueprint, a futuristic way to classify things. But stick with me, because as we're about to see, it's actually a key to understanding a whole new way of telling stories in our time. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the core idea, the immortality ladder. Then we'll get into the weeds of its bizarre classification system for consciousness. After that, we'll check out who supposedly created this thing. And then, and this is really the most important part, we're going to figure out what it's really all about. Okay, let's jump right in. The whole thing kicks off with this really specific, kind of dense phrase. And honestly, this is our first major clue about what's going on. So let's unpack that, right? Taxonomy, that's just a fancy word for a classification system. Glyphic means it's all about symbols, images or signs, instead of just words. And uploaded consciousness? Well, that's the classic sci-fi dream, isn't it? Taking a mind and making it digital. Put it all together, and what we've got is a symbolic guide for sorting minds that have been moved from a real brain into something else entirely. All right, so let's see how they actually build this system out. It's set up like a ladder, starting on a step that feels pretty familiar, but then it just climbs way, way out there into some seriously abstract territory. So the first rung of the ladder, it's something we all know, the cyborg. A human mind in a robotic body. Or at least a partially robotic one. Pretty straightforward, right? It's kind of the baseline for all of this stuff in pop culture. But then, literally the very next step up, things get weird. We get the Zooborg. This is an animal's consciousness transplanted into a humanoid or robotic body. And you just gotta ask, right? What would a dolphin's mind even do inside a robot that walks on two legs? It's a wild concept. And this is where you see the incredible detail they went into. It's not just, oh, here's one weird idea. No, they break it down into specific types that even keep the animal's original skills. So you've got an echoborg that still has a dolphin's sonar, or an avborg that has a bird's natural GPS. It's like they're building this whole bizarre, methodical science from scratch. And then, whoa, we take this huge leap from biology straight into the world of ideas. Now we're at the animaborg. This isn't the mind of a real animal, it's the archetype of an animal. Think of it like the pure concept of a trickster coyote, or the embodiment of a noble lion. We're not talking about individual creatures anymore. And that brings us to the very top of the ladder, the mythoborg. This is a consciousness that was never alive in the first place. It's a completely synthetic mind, built from the ground up. It's designed to be a brand new, totally artificial archetype. So you see the progression? We went from moving minds to straight up inventing them. So when you lay it all out like this, you can really see that clear path, right? We start with something concrete, a specific person or an animal, and we climb all the way up to something totally abstract and synthetic. It's a ladder that's basically climbing away from reality as we know it. And the level of detail is so specific, you have to wonder, who on earth would make something like this, and why? I mean, a system this weird and detailed doesn't just appear out of nowhere, right? It feels like it has to have an author. And, well, the document itself seems to agree, because it gives us a pretty grand origin story. So, yeah, the document gives us an answer, but it's an answer that honestly just makes the whole performance even deeper. It's building this whole kind of fake academic lore around itself. So get this, credit is given to the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies IX, and it has a founder, a Dr. Melvin Sewell, whose title is Diagnostic Architect. I mean, come on, this is such a classic online world-building move, right? You invent a fake authority figure or institution to make your fiction feel more real, more official. It's all just part of the game, part of the mystery. But just when you think you've got a handle on it, just when you're settling into this cool piece of speculative science, the document completely pulls the rug out from under you. And this, right here, is where we find the real key to what Zooborg Genesis is all about. It all comes down to this disclaimer. See how it's framed with those strange symbols? It completely changes the meaning of the entire document. This is the exact moment it stops pretending to be science fiction and finally tells us what its true mission is. It makes a few things crystal clear. First, it's not connected to any government, any political party, nothing. Then it says that all those terms we just learned, cyborg, zooborg, all of them, are actually diagnostic tools. And finally, it says it's not a political endorsement or some kind of critique of an institution. So, okay, if it's not sci-fi and it's not politics, then what in the world is it?
Well, the cool thing is, the disclaimer doesn't just tell us what this thing isn't, it tells us exactly what its creators want it to be. And it uses 3 really powerful, really specific phrases. You could almost call it a manifesto.
First up, it calls itself mythic infrastructure. Now, just think about that for a second. That means it's not a story itself, it's the framework for telling new stories. It's like a toolkit, a brand new language designed for building modern myths. Second, it's a cinematic indictment. I love that phrase. It mashes together the art of movies with the power of a legal charge. The idea is that you can use storytelling, you can use narrative as a way to formally call out or accuse something that's broken in our society. And the last piece? A sovereign broadcast. This frames the whole thing as a totally independent message. It's coming from outside all the established systems of media and control. It's like a pirate radio transmission broadcasting on its own frequency. So what's the point of this broadcast? Well, it's to expose these really complex societal problems, things it calls ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion. So basically, the whole fictional system of Borgs we just went through, it's all a giant metaphor. It's a strange, new symbolic language made up to diagnose real-world problems that our everyday language just can't quite describe. So, at the end of the day, Zooborg Genesis is a puzzle, isn't it? It's just a fascinating example of how people are building new mythologies online. They're using this cryptic language and this fake science to try and make sense of the real world. So what is it? A blueprint for the future? A piece of performance art? A warning? Maybe it's all 3. Maybe it's just a new kind of story for a time that's getting harder and harder to explain.